Okay, this is Negotiating with Jesus. I'm Tom. We're going to go over a couple of verses today that have to do with planning youth lessons. So this is going to be something a little more structured than normal, but I'm going to try and take it apart like I normally do. We're going to do some lessons around Leader Trek's The Black Letters of Jesus. So the red letters of Jesus, if you have a Bible that highlights Jesus' words, they're highlighted in red letters. And DC Talk did a song called The Red Letters, which was about that. And also David Crowder did a Red Letters song. And it's code that Christians know, and it's our secret little world. And we know that many Christians know that red letters imply the actual spoken words of Jesus. So in the discussion we're going to try and do a discussion with volunteer support and planning ahead of time. This lesson is going to be on Jesus and the least. So Jesus has a way of turning everything around. When we look at status, we see that people of power, wealth, beauty, there are people who rise to the top of status in the world. And oftentimes they're to be admired. They're great athletes, they're great singers, or men and women of industry that can create great products and manage hundreds or thousands of people, make fortunes, rule armies, bring peace or war into the world. And it's these great movers and shakers who are at the very top of the pyramid. And Jesus ends up saying, look, well, we're just going to read the lesson and we'll try and get to some of the points we can bring out. So we're going to read from Matthew chapter 19, verses 13 through 15. And Jesus is talking with disciples, and he seemed to just walk around with them, and then he would bring little object lessons to them just as things happened around him, just normal encounters with people in the world. So here he's going to be, this has a little subheading, which is not actually scripture. It's heading for our help that editors put in. So Matthew 19, verse 13, then people brought little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked them. Jesus said, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. When he had placed his hands on them, he went on from there. We're going to also read Mark chapter 9, verse 33. And going down to that, we have Jesus. Jesus predicts his death, and the disciples never clear, and it's just really absolutely as true as can be that humans, we struggle with really understanding what we're to make of any given situation. We honestly are like sheep in some way, wandering around, what should I do next? And then we see a little tuft of grass and we go nibble on that for a while. So Jesus predicts his death, and then the disciples did not understand what he meant and were afraid to ask him about it. So then back to our lesson plan, this is Mark 9:33. They came to Capernaum. When he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? But they kept quiet because on the way they had argued about who was the greatest. Typical guys getting together and trash talking each other. Who is the greatest? Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all. He took a little child whom he placed among them. Taking the child in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me." So this is the reading from the lesson, Who's First? Jesus and the Least. As we begin this lesson, we will talk a little bit about how we separate and judge and organize the people that we see around us in our everyday lives. Now, for students, one of the big places they see people's statuses rise and fall is in the classroom setting in schools. You can see it in the hallways and in the cliques and the friends that you have. And you can see the outcast crowd and you can see the popular crowd, and they're sorted in all different ways. But it's sorted in things that the world looks on favorably. So we see people who have some sort of wealth or some sort of athletic prowess or some sort of gifts for intellect or whatever. There are people who rise to the top, and there are people who seem to have be less gifted in different ways. Someone who's not particularly attractive or even has been disfigured or something tragic has happened. Tragic in our understanding. Of course, this is always in our understanding, which is so small. So we so misunderstand the world, and we see somebody who's maybe so potentially beautiful inside, but may have some look that distracts us from their beauty, may have some physical appearance that does not draw us in. And then that person receives a low status and often is mocked or ridiculed or rejected or alone or lonely or depressed, and all these things. This great baggage comes upon people who don't have what appears to be an easier way, the gifts of beauty or wealth or status through your parents or just the things that happen in life. So we'll talk a little bit about how the social ladder, people move up and down the social